to Watch is an intimate look into the lives of prominent and influential women leaders from around the world and the challenges they faced on their journey. It's the real story behind her title. Join us every week to hear more stories about women from around the world and in your own communities at womentowatch.net. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of Women to Watch. I'm Sue Rocco. Thanks for being with me. This week, I'm going to be speaking with Kelley Steven-Waiss, and Kelley is the CTO for ServiceNow. As always, be sure to stay with us during the breaks, where you'll hear segments from our exclusive Watch team of contributors. So now I'm very excited and honored to welcome to the show, Kelley Weiss.
Yes, great to be here, Susan. Thank you.
It's great to have you. I'm very excited. So much to talk about. First, I'll let our viewers know you're joining us from California. Is it sunny California there today?
Actually, gorgeous today. It's like, I think it's above 70 degrees. It's clear.
Yeah, very nice. Listen, I wanted to start with a quote because I think it really kind of sets the tone for what you and I are going to be talking about and a little bit about what has shaped your life, personally and professionally. You said the fire beneath me comes from my mother, who died tragically when she was way too young. Tell us what happened first.
Yeah, so my mother decided at 45 years old to sign up for the police academy in Los Angeles. They had just lifted the age ban. Her father was a retired homicide detective, so he told her, "Hey, Christy, I know you wanted to join the police force in the 60s, but guess what? They raised the age ban, like you could sign up now." And she thought about it for a New York minute and applied, got in, and joined the police academy from a very sedentary job. She was an accountant or bookkeeper prior to that. And so I honestly thought she was in midlife crisis, but there she goes. She jumped into it. But unfortunately, right after graduation, her first domestic violence call that she got over the radio, she was killed in the line of duty. So she was sort of ambushed when she showed up, and it really was devastating for the cohort that she had just graduated with. You can imagine her family, including myself, and I was 24 at the time. So it really was a very defining moment for me. In particular, realizing that whatever she had put into me up to that point, like my 2 feet were now solidly on the ground. There was no going back home or going back to mom. It was really, really tough.
Yeah. And the biggest, not the biggest piece of it, but the fact that she was 45 in the 60s, she did this. What do you think it was about your mom that gave her the courage to do something like that later in life and in a time when it was so unusual?
Well, in the 60s, she was only in her 20s, but they just weren't letting women on the force, certainly not in the job as a homicide detective. So now fast forward, it's now 1993. They lift the age ban, and so she jumps into it. So she's 45 years old at that point and 20 years older than most of the people in the academy. They were more my age. So the physical requirements of the job were, rigorous, and, going from a sedentary job to competing essentially with other cadets who were coming out of the military and were 20 years younger. It was quite a feat for her.
Kelley, I wanted to ask you, when you think about what impact that had on you for your life, what was the difference between the Kelley prior to that and the Kelley after that?
I think when someone that you're close to loses their life tragically, I think you realize that life is very short and it's fragile, and that you you have to make your mark or difference in the world. You have to live sort of in that whole carpe diem, seize the day moment, like never taking anything for granted. And, my mom leaves a legacy of being fearless. I decided that I needed to take that lesson and be fearless myself, and that I wanted to also have a legacy. I wanted to do something that leaves a mark on the world. And that, I didn't want her to die in vain. And so that became my mission, is to figure out what is it that I'm going to do to change the world. And, that sort of led me initially, throughout my career to what I ended up doing, amazingly enough.
Yeah. So initially, you went off to University of Arizona to be a journalist.
That's right.
And yeah, your career's been a great example, I think, of how opportunities can lead to different opportunities, and it's okay to be changing gears when an opportunity arises in one area. Um, when did you understand that journalism was not for you? Was there kind of a moment or?
Yeah, I think, I got into journalism. Of course, I grew up in Los Angeles. My father was in the film industry, and I knew I didn't want to be an actress, but I loved the news. I loved writing. And so I, went into journalism because, the best advice I got was do what you love and everything will work itself out. And at the time, I really loved writing. And so I think at one point when I was young and I was working in advertising and we all lost our jobs because we lost the account, I realized that whether it was journalism or, leveraging writing or communications, you're never going to have security, right? You're never going to be fully in control, but you just have to keep doing what you love. And I realized that journalism probably wasn't, or advertising wasn't going to be the end game for me. And so I just kept my mind open to what is it that I love doing, and realizing that I would come to that end at some point.
So tell me what was your job prior to founding Hitchworks?
So I ended up taking a role as a head of human resources for a semiconductor company after working with that CFO doing strategic planning. He asked me, we have a head of human resources role open. Would you consider it? And of course, I told him, no, thank you. I haven't really come up the ranks in HR, so I don't think I'm the appropriate person for that role. But after turning him down 4 times, on the fifth time, I said yes. And I ended up in that role for 13 years. And at the core, I realized that the skills I had obtained around change management and large scale transformations and culture transformations, turnarounds, et cetera, was very appropriate to that industry at the time, and that I could be quite differentiated in that role. And I ended up loving it enough to stay in it for, 13 years, until while being a CHRO, I realized there was an opportunity in the market to disrupt the traditional ways that training and resourcing was done, and I sort of whiteboarded this solution that later became Hitch. So it was from that perch of being a CHRO that I was able to see that people were not necessarily happy in their jobs. We were losing talent so fast, and if we could actually see people for their whole selves, all the skills that they'd acquired through their career, we could probably resource talent much differently, as a win for the company and a win for the employees.
Would you describe yourself as a problem solver? Because I love the way you founded the company, um, recognizing a problem that actually I think I heard you say in another interview that you experienced yourself being
Mhm.
bored in a job, and so you didn't just sit with that recognition and of a problem. You decided you were going to do something about it, and you seem to
Well,
have done that multiple times.
I think one common thread through my whole life was being creative, being able to connect dots and build a vision. Being able to see clearly how to take something from X to Y to Z. And I think that that's clearly what happened for me. I also was an employee. I experienced being overlooked for certain roles that I felt I was appropriate for, or not feeling seen, valued, or heard. And I had a jungle gym career before it was in vogue. I had moved around and gained a lot of different skills, but I didn't always feel those skills and capabilities were tapped. And I found that if there was a way with technology, we could unearth and visualize the skills and capabilities, some earned and acquired through personal experiences, some acquired and learned through professional experiences, we could really change the game. And there would be a new way to tap talent, to leverage capacity inside the organization. And actually, my first book, Susan, called The Inside Gig, was about that strategy, about changing that operating model for talent and really dramatically changing business outcomes and, outcomes for individuals.
Can you describe, exactly how that software worked?
So we use skills intelligence or skills artificial intelligence to tap and match people to work, either full-time work or project-based work. So skills were a common denominator that if we attached artificial intelligence to, we could more specifically find the needle in the haystack person who has a very specific skill set to a certain type of work. Or we could find those people that often didn't have the networks. They weren't well known, and often those are in underrepresented communities. So the potential gain was enormous. If you think about how many times you've been at work and you've opened a rec, maybe as a people leader, because you need to get a certain level of work done and you feel like you don't have the skills, often those skills are in the organization. We just tend to look either in our own orgs or business units, and we don't have visibility to everyone in the company. But think about in a world where you have, you're able to tap more people outside, either your own networks or your organization, the potential is enormous to find those skills. So that's essentially what we were doing. And we were saving a ton of money for the company. We were creating a lot more goodwill inside the organization, people that were engaged and excited because they're learning new skills and getting exposure outside of their current role. And that's essentially, I built everything that I would have wanted as an employee.
Do you think that the C-suite level, the senior executives are understanding now the importance of that for retention, that you have to kind of be a very active part of the growth of your employees, help them uncover their potential, even if they're sitting in a role that they're doing a really good job and you just kind of want them to stay there?
I think that money talks. I think that often in the C-suite, particularly the CFO, the COO, they are responsible for ensuring the efficiency of the company and the strategy. And so what we were seeing and what the results we were getting was that we were saving the company money because they were tapping existing capacity, and all of that goodwill and retention, which also has some, impact to the bottom line, we were also getting. So it wasn't presented as this touchy-feely solution that was only going to make employees happy. We were actually getting results that mattered to the C-suite. And so once that we started to get those results, I think we started to get more and more attention from people in those roles.
We're going to go into our first break, and I'm excited to announce a brand new segment to the show, Good News with Christy McCaffrey. Christy is the founder of Be the Good Media, and she's going to be joining us on a regular basis to bring us some good news, which we all need. Stay with us, and we'll be back with Kelley Steven-Waiss.
Hi, this is Christy McCaffrey with Be the Good Media. I am the founder of Be the Good Media, and I am here to share with you some good news. Be the Good Media is a video production agency serving nonprofits and for-purpose organizations who are working to create a lasting and positive impact for the good. I often say that my team and I, our niche really is compassion-driven storytelling. We have over 13 years of experience crafting videos and films that help to connect an audience with the true passion and purpose behind an impact-driven mission. We also have a podcast called Be the Good Podcast. And on that show, I interview a diverse range of guests, all who are working in their own unique way to make a difference in the world. As a female founder myself, I love the opportunity to highlight good stories of anybody who's doing good work in the world, but especially the amazing work being done by females, which is why I am thrilled and honored to partner with Women to Watch Media to help elevate and shed light on the stories of women who are doing good and to share that with the masses. I recently had a really inspiring conversation with a guest of mine named Darian Johnson. Darian is a 25-year-old North Philadelphia native who shared with us that after overcoming many of life's challenges early on, she decided to dedicate her life's work to strengthening grassroots organizations and helping local families to heal, which is just such an incredible example of how we can all use our lived experiences to help support other people. You can find Be the Good Podcast on your favorite podcast platform. You can also visit us at www.bethegoodmedia.com to learn more about our work. And please be sure to follow us on Instagram at bethegood_media. And remember, we can all find our own way to be the good.
We are CHOP, and we can't wait to show you around. We're the nation's first children's hospital. Now, a care network with more than 50 locations that continues to expand. 3 state-of-the-art research buildings with 1.5 million square feet of space. We have grown from 12 beds 165 years ago to nearly 600 beds and one of the best children's hospitals in the world. We have a level 1 trauma center, 11 floors of patient units, more than 20 operating rooms, first of its kind delivery unit for babies with birth defects, a separate cardiac operative and catheterization suite, and places to learn, like our internationally recognized simulation center. We have trained generations of leaders in the field of pediatrics. We are world leaders in medicine, surgery, and science. One of the top recipients in NIH funding for pediatric research. In this building, pioneers in CAR T therapy, mitochondrial disease, brain tumors, hyperinsulinism, and other rare diseases. Here, groundbreaking work in fetal surgery, genetics and genomics, and neurology. In our newest building, leaders in social determinants of health, clinical informatics and epidemiology, autism, trauma and injury prevention. Our patients come from every state and 115 countries. Meeting these challenges requires the best and the brightest. We are passionate about pediatrics. We are motivated to make a difference in the world and in our community. We are a team. We are CHOP.
Welcome back to the show. I'm speaking this week with Kelley Steven-Waiss, and Kelley is the CTO of ServiceNow. And I would say one of your greatest accomplishments in your professional career was ServiceNow acquiring the company that you founded. How proud were you in that moment?
Oh, absolutely so proud. I have to say, in the book, the new book that I have coming out, I tell the story about meeting Bill McDermott for the first time, who's the chairman and CEO of ServiceNow. I told him that it was like the knight in shining armor showing up at my door. I had to pinch myself. I think because my vision, obviously, a founder builds a company that they want, particularly technology, they think will change the world. And ServiceNow is a cloud platform, and platforms have the ability to be more ubiquitous. And so, by virtue of the acquisition, I was going to, instead of trying to slay every next customer, they had over 7,700 customers already and growing. And I was going to immediately be able to bring that to so many customers. So that was a dream come true.
Did you approach ServiceNow, or did they come to you? Did they hear about the product?
No, they came inbound to me. So I got the knock on the door from them in February of 22. And by the middle of June, we were acquired. So June 16th, we were all ServiceNow employees. And I'm extremely proud. You never do anything solo. I'm extremely proud of the team that I got to work with that built that great product and was able to create that kind of value that it was ultimately acquired from such a prestigious software company as ServiceNow.
So tell me what you're doing now as in your role as CTO of the company. What is I know you do a lot of travel.
Yeah.
You also have 4 children, by the way. We'll talk about that later. But what is the main job for you in that role?
So chief transformation officers, there's more than one. We serve two areas of the company. One, we work with that top 150 accounts for the organization on digital and workforce transformations. Many of my peers in this role were former CIOs. We've all been C-suite executives, so we know how to talk to that buying center, and we understand some of the dynamics and challenges that they may have in those roles. The second part of the job is really to evangelize on behalf of the company. So we have a deep understanding of the platform and its benefits, and we talk about how the platform can essentially drive some of those business outcomes that C-suite really cares about. So we're often on stage at conferences and summits talking about the benefits of deploying ServiceNow.
Do you think about the fact that you're sitting in the C-suite of a major global company as a woman? It's often talked about in circles in the arena of women's empowerment. We want to see more. Do you think about that as something that you didn't have to work so hard? You just did the work. You were recognized. You were innovative, and it came to you. Or do you have a desire to help other women get to that same level of leadership?
I think, honestly, if women supported each other more, we would see a lot more women in leadership roles too. I think we do need to support each other. Getting to the C-suite is not easy. The bar is high, but it's not impossible. I always say, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. There's a great quote in my book that there are women that reach down and pull the other up the ladder, and then there's others that reach back and pull the ladder up behind them. I think that we need the former. We need to be looking for ways to bring up other women every single day, whether it's making introductions for them to investors or customers, or introduction to the company for a new job, or helping them negotiate. There's so many ways that we can help each other. And I honestly think we would be running the world if we just every day looked for a way to lift another woman up.
I think, they call that sponsoring rather than mentoring.
That's right. And advocacy is an active word. I think that unfortunately, with mentorship, often, it became an introduction and a conversation, but it was never any action that was taken. I think when you really sponsor someone, that means that, and that's why I can't quote, mentor 30 people, because I take it as an active role of sponsorship. So I'm, meeting them with them regularly, holding myself accountable to actually helping them, taking action on anything that they need, whether it's introductions or help. And so it really is an active type of call and relationship. And I think that, again, if we did more of that, maybe you can't mentor, hundreds of people, but if you could actively make a difference in 5 people's lives, 5 women's lives, I think that would make a huge difference.
I wanted to get back to, kind of where we started before we talk about the book, and this kind of goal for you to not let your mom's death be in vain. You've taken on a lot of roles. You have a lot of titles, entrepreneur, author, speaker, CEO, board director, mother of 4. And I have a question, and then I actually have a question from one of our viewers for you. I dug in and did my research, and as I was drafting my questions, I thought, wow, that's a lot. Does that ever feel to you as though you're trying to do too much, or do you feel your best in the busy? Are you, lit up when you are?
It's a great question. And it actually leads me to the fact that it's not magic. There's actually a man behind this woman. So I always say, marry well, partner up well. I was very fortunate to find my soulmate early in my life. He has stood behind me through lots of twists and turns in my career, through 4 children who are, 23 down to 13 as we speak. And so I think that I cannot discount how much that attributed to my ability to take those roles that scared the crap out of me or that required a lot of travel. So that is a lot of my success. I think the other part that rests with you or yourself is a willingness to live in a world without limits. I decided, actually going back to when my mother passed, that I would not limit myself. I would make choices, but I would never limit myself in terms of what I was capable of doing. There might be times when I couldn't take a role because I opted to, focus on, raising a child or having another child, but I didn't want to give myself limits. So I always dreamed big, and I never believed that I couldn't do something I set my mind to. And although I would never sign up to be a surgeon, because, honestly, I don't think
That's where you draw the line.
I don't think I could handle the blood. But I didn't want to give myself any limitations.
So it sounds like you have not experienced burnout, the burnout that some people in high level positions of leadership.
Not true. I think I have definitely.
So you're human. Okay.
I am so human. I think, and I'll tell the story because I think it's really important. I think mental health is really important. I think while I was running the startup, that I really hit a sort of a rock bottom point. I think I was working myself to death. I felt, I called it the man standing on my chest, this feeling of responsibility for the daily operations, the cash, the fundraising. I mean, you can't afford to hire all the different roles, so you're wearing a lot of hats. And I was really in a low place, and it was my personal board of directors, which I talk about in my book. You know, it's really important to have people that you can count on with different capabilities that serve different purposes to really hold me accountable and say, you know what, take your meetings walking, make sure you're exercising. You can't, you could, your to-do list will never end. You could work all night. Don't do that. And so it really took, you know, some tough conversations and getting some help, you know, outreach to friends and people on my personal board of directors to make some changes that were really, really important. And so even with a wonderful family and a great spouse and success, you know, as a tailwind, sometimes you do hit burnout and you need to pay attention and you need to look out for your mental health.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, because that's, you know, it's just always, you know, a lesson in, no matter how much success we find, there are those moments, you know, where we can be struggling. One of our viewers asked, what are key success factors that allow you to do so much? So how would you answer that question?
I think you can't do everything, right? So I think you have to make choices. Some of those choices come from your own core values and where you prioritize things in your life, like time with your spouse, exercise, time with family, creative outlets, you know, reading, other things like that. And so I think it really comes down to prioritizing based on those choices and you know, not trying to tackle too many things at one time. I think your body and your mind will tell you when you've done too much and you need to pay
Yeah.
attention to those signs. There's no accounting for the importance of sleep, and getting, you know, out there and being outside, not sitting at your desk all day and all night. In fact, you can't even be creative. And I think certainly running a startup or being in any executive role, you don't want to stave off your ability to innovate or be creative. And sometimes you got to get your blood flowing and get out from under your desk to do that.
Exactly. And I think that sometimes our body speaks louder than our mind. I think our mind, you know, we're saying we can do it, but our body will tell us,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we'll physically feel it. And, you know, the question is, do we pay attention or not? Um, but I want to talk about your book, Valley Girls, a roadmap to beat the odds as women. First of all, when did you that's a task, you know, taking on the writing of a book is a big project. What was the catalyst for your decision to say, you know, I have learned enough that I want to share it now and do that by writing a book?
I think, you know, honestly, the journey started with, you know, building and running a startup is a tall order. I think it was tough. And I realized that nobody had written, there was no book out there that talked about the journey for a female founder. And I felt like I had learned so many valuable lessons. And I assumed, I made the assumption there was probably a lot of other female founders that had wisdom to share, and I wanted to give back. I wanted someone like me to be able to pick up a book and find themselves in it and to feel some sense of inspiration or relief. And books are not for the faint of heart. I know, because I had written one before, although I had written it with a co-author, it was still one of the toughest things I've ever done. So this book took 6 months to write, and 6 or 7 months to edit. And so, you know, I don't recommend writing books if you get distracted too easily, because it's tough. But I think that was really the catalyst for the book. And the objectives were, one, to inspire more innovation inside organizations and for those doing, you know, venture-backed startups. Two, to get more funding to female founders. And three, to really send a message to women that we need to support each other. that the only way that we get out of less than 2% of all venture capital going to female founders is by backing each other. And that starts, it honestly starts in the playground and it goes all the way through your career. So we have to ingrain this, I think, in young girls, and throughout their career, the importance of support, looking for ways to support each other.
Yeah, excuse me. I think we consistently see the percentages of venture capital and angel investing as well is small. That's going to women, and I wonder how do you decide when is the right time to pursue venture capital versus an angel investor? Are there parameters for or rules for which direction you go when it comes to starting a company?
There are certainly no rules, and it is really a personal choice. And so, starting on the venture capital side, you don't want to go into that blindly. I think you do lose some of your control, I think, over your company when you go get venture capital. So you need to understand kind of the pros and cons of venture versus angel investing versus putting in your own money, having skin in the game. There are certainly formulas that venture capital, they have a portfolio of companies or a thesis for the type of industries they might invest in based on their own experience. And they have a certain financial gain or formula that they're looking to get out of it. Some of them are seed investors, which means they're very early stage investors, and some are Series A and later. So you definitely want to do your homework. When you start to engage in venture capital, you want to do your due diligence. You're essentially marrying these people should they decide to put money into your company. So you always want to align yourself in a way that is conducive to your success. In some cases, all money is not created equal. Maybe they have the type of networks to be able to introduce you to future customers, et cetera, and maybe they don't. So I think you need to pick that up during the point at which you're doing a lot of due diligence.
Yeah, it's hard. The money is the creativity, the idea. That's the best part. The money is a whole other beast.
It's a whole other
But
beast.
it really is. Yeah. I'm going to let you go, but my last question is about your kids. You have 2 girls, 2 boys. And as a mom, I think it's difficult today to be a parent. It's a different world for sure than when we were growing up. And, what do you hope for them in their future careers?
You know what? I really want them to be happy. I think it sounds like, okay, that's what everybody says, but that's true. And what that means is that, all 4 of my children are very different from each other. They have different interests. And so the best thing I can do is support that. My oldest son is business all the way and about to graduate from Northeastern May 2nd. My second one's at Stanford and plays football and much more of a scientist and an engineer type and probably an entrepreneur, honestly, later. My third, which is a daughter, she's at SMU, she's 19 and she's in film. So she's more of a creative. And my 13-year-old girl, who knows what she's going to do. She's still clay. She's still forming. But I think the best thing we can do for our kids is just support their dreams and know that, like I dedicated this last book to my daughters in particular and said, don't have limiting beliefs. Really set your sights high. And then you can only, you fall where you fall.
Yeah. That's really great advice. It really is. I think historically we sometimes do limit our dreams and our aspirations. So I think that's one of the greatest lessons in life and the greatest lesson to share with your daughter.
Yes.
Kelley, thanks so much for taking time to be on the show today. I wish you continued success.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's a pleasure. I think what you're doing is so important. And if I could leave any of these viewers with advice, it's just look for a way to lift up another woman every single day. That's the best we can do for each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stay with us. I'm going to go into my last break and I'll be back to close out the show.
We are CHOP, and we can't wait to show you around. We're the nation's first children's hospital. Now, a care network with more than 50 locations that continues to expand. 3 state-of-the-art research buildings with 1.5 million square feet of space. We have grown from 12 beds 165 years ago to nearly 600 beds and one of the best children's hospitals in the world. We have a level 1 trauma center, 11 floors of patient units, more than 20 operating rooms, first of its kind delivery unit for babies with birth defects, a separate cardiac operative and catheterization suite, and places to learn, like our internationally recognized simulation center. We have trained generations of leaders in the field of pediatrics. We are world leaders in medicine, surgery, and science. One of the top recipients in NIH funding for pediatric research. In this building, pioneers in CAR T therapy, mitochondrial disease, brain tumors, hyperinsulinism, and other rare diseases. Here, groundbreaking work in fetal surgery, genetics and genomics, and neurology. In our newest building, leaders in social determinants of health, clinical informatics and epidemiology, autism, trauma and injury prevention. Our patients come from every state and 115 countries. Meeting these challenges requires the best and the brightest. We are passionate about pediatrics. We are motivated to make a difference in the world and in our community. We are a team. We are CHOP.
That's it, everyone, for another week of Women to Watch. Next week, I'll be sitting down with Regina Bain, and Regina is the executive director for the Louis Armstrong Museum in Brooklyn. Thank you so much, as always, to our sponsors and our watch team. Have a great week, everyone.